If you have heard that eating fruit raises testosterone, you have probably also heard that it does not matter which fruit, that any healthy diet does the job equally, and that the whole idea of a single food moving the needle on testosterone is mostly marketing. Here is what the clinical evidence actually shows, and it directly contradicts that dismissal. There is one fruit with a documented, mechanistic, research-supported effect on testosterone production in men over 60. And the reason most men have never been told about it specifically is not because the research is weak. It is because the research is newer than the conventional advice most doctors are still repeating. I'm Dr. Emily Carter, a board-certified urologist with over 12 years in clinical practice. I've spent a significant portion of that time correcting the misinformation men over 60 receive about testosterone, what drives it, what kills it, and what the clinical evidence actually shows about recovering it. Today, I want to give you a precise, evidence-based answer to a question that has been buried under a lot of noise. That fruit is pomegranate. And by the end of this video, you will understand exactly why, exactly how much, exactly when, and exactly what the research says about what it does inside your body. Before I get into the evidence, drop a comment and tell me what you have heard about testosterone and diet. I want to know what misinformation is circulating, because in my experience, men over 60 have been told an enormous number of things about testosterone that range from incomplete to flatly wrong. Here is what most men have been told. Testosterone decline after 60 is primarily genetic and hormonal. Diet has a minor supporting role at best, and there is no specific food that meaningfully moves testosterone levels in aging men. Here is what is wrong with that. It treats testosterone as a fixed output rather than a regulated system. Testosterone production is governed by a cascade, the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, and that cascade is sensitive to a precise set of biochemical inputs. Oxidative stress suppresses it. Chronic inflammation suppresses it. Elevated cortisol suppresses it. Impaired nitric oxide production reduces testicular blood flow and suppresses it. What the research on pomegranate shows is that this fruit intervenes at multiple points in that suppression cascade simultaneously. That is not a minor dietary footnote. That is a clinically relevant mechanism. And the men who understand it have access to something most men their age do not. Let me walk you through the evidence benefit by benefit, because the breadth of pomegranate's effect on the male hormonal and vascular system is what makes it worth understanding precisely. The first benefit is direct testosterone elevation. In 2012, a study conducted at Queen Margaret University in Edinburgh recruited 60 healthy volunteers and had them consume 230 milliliters of pomegranate juice daily for 2 weeks. At the end of the study period, salivary testosterone levels had increased by an average of 24%. 24% in 2 weeks. The researchers also measured cortisol, the stress hormone that is one of testosterone's primary suppressors, and found it had decreased significantly. The mechanism here is not mysterious. Pomegranate is extraordinarily rich in punicalagins and ellagic acid, 2 polyphenols that have potent antioxidant and anti-inflammatory effects. Oxidative stress in the Leydig cells of the testes, the cells that produce testosterone, directly impairs their output. Reducing that oxidative load allows those cells to function closer to their actual capacity. For a man over 60 whose Leydig cell function has been gradually suppressed by decades of accumulated oxidative stress, this is not a trivial intervention. The second benefit is improved nitric oxide production and testicular blood flow. This is the mechanism that most men and most general practitioners are not aware of, and it is arguably the most important one. Testosterone is produced in the testes. The testes require adequate blood flow to function. Blood flow to the testes, like blood flow everywhere in the body, depends on nitric oxide synthesis in the endothelial cells lining the blood vessels. Pomegranate has been shown in multiple studies to significantly increase nitric oxide bioavailability. A study published in the journal Nitric Oxide found that pomegranate juice consumption increased nitric oxide levels by measurable amounts in healthy adults, and the mechanism was identified as the inhibition of an enzyme called ACE, angiotensin-converting enzyme, which normally degrades nitric oxide. Less ACE activity means more nitric oxide preserved in circulation. More nitric oxide means better vascular dilation. Better vascular dilation in the testicular vasculature means better blood flow to the Leydig cells. Better blood flow to the Leydig cells means better testosterone output. The clinical evidence shows this chain is real, it is measurable, and it is directly relevant to men over 60 whose nitric oxide production has been declining for years. The third benefit is cortisol suppression and HPA axis regulation. Gentlemen, this is the one that does not get discussed enough. Cortisol and testosterone operate in direct opposition. When cortisol is chronically elevated, which it is in a significant proportion of men over 60 due to poor sleep, metabolic stress, and accumulated inflammatory load, testosterone suppression is the predictable result. The Queen Margaret University study I referenced earlier did not just show a testosterone increase, it showed a simultaneous cortisol decrease in the same subjects over the same 2-week period. That bidirectional effect, testosterone up, cortisol down, is not coincidental. Pomegranate's polyphenols have been shown to modulate the HPA axis, the hormonal pathway that governs cortisol release. Reducing the chronic cortisol burden allows the testosterone system to operate with less suppression. For men whose lifestyle, sleep quality, or metabolic health has kept cortisol persistently elevated, this is a meaningful lever. The fourth benefit is reduction of estrogen dominance through aromatase inhibition. This is a clinical reality that most men have never been told about, and it matters enormously for men over 60. As testosterone levels decline with age, the enzyme aromatase, which converts testosterone into estrogen, becomes more active, particularly in adipose tissue. The result is a hormonal environment where testosterone is low, estrogen is proportionally elevated, and the symptoms, fatigue, reduced libido, softer erections, increased body fat, emotional flatness, compound on each other. Research published in the journal Cancer Prevention Research identified ellagic acid, one of pomegranate's primary polyphenols, as a natural aromatase inhibitor. It does not shut aromatase down completely. This is not a pharmaceutical intervention, but it measurably reduces aromatase activity, which means less of whatever testosterone your body is producing gets converted away before it can do its job. For men over 60 operating in a low testosterone, high aromatase environment, this effect is clinically relevant. The fifth benefit is improved insulin sensitivity and metabolic testosterone support. The clinical evidence shows a clear bidirectional relationship between insulin resistance and low testosterone. Men with poor insulin sensitivity have lower testosterone. Men with low testosterone are more prone to developing insulin resistance. It is a loop, and once a man is in it, both problems reinforce each other. Pomegranate has been shown in multiple studies to improve insulin sensitivity and reduce fasting blood glucose levels. A study in the journal Complementary Therapies in Clinical Practice found that pomegranate extract supplementation over 8 weeks produced significant improvements in insulin resistance markers in participants with metabolic dysfunction. Breaking the insulin-testosterone suppression loop by improving metabolic function is not a direct testosterone intervention, but the clinical evidence shows it is a real one. For men over 60 who carry excess abdominal fat, have borderline blood sugar, or have been told they are pre-diabetic, this mechanism is particularly important. Now let me give you the evidence-based protocol, because the research benefits I have described are dose and timing dependent. The clinical evidence supports consuming 200 to 250 milliliters of pure pomegranate juice daily. Not a blend, not a cocktail, not a supplement that lists pomegranate as one of 12 ingredients. Pure pomegranate juice, or the equivalent in whole pomegranate seeds, which research suggests provides comparable polyphenol delivery. Consume it in the morning. The cortisol suppression mechanism is most relevant in the morning hours, when cortisol is naturally at its peak. Intervening at that point in the daily cortisol cycle has the greatest downstream effect on testosterone. Do not add sugar. Commercial pomegranate juices with added sugar introduce an insulin spike that partially undermines the metabolic benefits. Read the label. The only ingredient should be pomegranate. Consistency matters more than quantity. The Queen Margaret University study showed measurable effects in 2 weeks of daily consumption. The men in that study did not take a large dose intermittently. They took a consistent, moderate dose every day. The polyphenol compounds in pomegranate accumulate, and their antioxidant effects compound over time. This is a daily habit, not an occasional intervention. One of my patients, a 67-year-old man who came to me with symptoms of low testosterone, fatigue, and reduced sexual function, had a total testosterone level of 290 nanograms per deciliter at his initial visit. He was not a candidate for testosterone replacement therapy at that level, and he was skeptical that dietary changes would make a meaningful difference. We implemented a protocol that included daily pomegranate juice alongside other evidence-based dietary adjustments. At his 90-day follow-up, his testosterone had risen to 384 nanograms per deciliter. His cortisol markers had improved. He reported significantly better energy and improved erection quality. He told me he had assumed that what his body was doing at 67 was fixed. The clinical evidence told a different story. Gentlemen, you have not been failing. You have been working with incomplete information. The conventional advice, eat a balanced diet, everything in moderation, no single food makes a significant difference, is not wrong exactly, but it is imprecise in a way that costs men results. The clinical evidence on pomegranate is specific, it is mechanistic, it is reproducible across multiple studies, and it points to a fruit that intervenes at several of the key suppression points in the testosterone system simultaneously. That is not marketing. That is what the data tells us. Tell me in the comments, what is one thing you believed about testosterone and diet that this video changed? I read these, and the answers help me understand what gaps exist in the information men are actually receiving. I'm Dr. Emily Carter. The clinical evidence shows that pomegranate's documented effects on oxidative stress, nitric oxide production, cortisol regulation, and aromatase activity make it one of the most precisely supported dietary interventions for testosterone health in men over 60. And that precision is worth acting on. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.